Welcome back to Mishpacha's Take 2, where the faces and names familiar to you from the pages of the magazine come to life. You get a deeper look, a closer glimpse. Today's guest, Benny Friedman, saying his name brings a smile to my lips. I'm not even sure why. It sounds a little bit like Purim. Having a event. Rebbe Tzionakain, welcome.
It sounds like Purim. Product placement in the first...
Thank you for coming in.
L'chaim, thanks for having me.
The Welt, they say fashionably late. I say Lubavitch late. This is a Lubavitch thing, that it's just incapability of just being here.
Because fashionably late would have been, but
You did better.
I did more than...
One-upped it.
Yeah, more... L'fnim mishuras, I did more than what's necessary, that's what I do.
That's very special. We're very grateful for that. Benny, I have a question for you, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I feel like, why aren't you out there more? Why aren't you releasing more singles? We don't hear anything from you. I'm serious. Like, what? Just so quiet since your last album 3 years ago. You come out, didn't put out anything. Why?
You laugh. In Eretz Yisroel, they asked me this question.
For real?
Yeah, for real. You haven't put anything out in a few years. I go, are you serious? I put out every 2 weeks. I put out something. What? English? It's nicht. Not,
But you understand what I'm really asking.
I do understand what you're asking.
The sarcasm. I'm asking you. Leonard, you sing beautifully, and you have Baruch Hashem many admirers, adherents, and fans. I think across all demographics,
Right.
But there's such a thing called overexposure. You're putting out a lot of stuff. You are everywhere. There's Bonei Olam and the Rebbeim and the Moras and Ukraine, and you don't stop. And every week there's a new single. Doni grows Benny Friedman. What?
How many books have you put out the last year?
This is not about me. This is about you. Another day we could talk about me.
It's an interesting question. I don't know. I think that in today's overexposed world, right, where you post something on social media, and its shelf life is maybe 6.5 minutes, right, until your yesterday's news. I'm not sure that there's such a thing called overexposure.
Okay.
People forget about things so fast.
So it's a little bit strategic, even. That means you don't buy into this thing of laying low and popping up every 6 months or every year or something new.
I don't think so. I don't believe in it. My father. My father once landed from a long trip, and he came to my grandmother's house for some supper, and he had a meeting later that evening. And so he's like at the table. He's showing signs of exhaustion. So my mother said, maybe you cancel the meeting, and get a good night's sleep. And my father went, he grabbed his energy and said, Hayom la'asoisam. No pushing things off.
Beautiful.
So if you have a song, you have a project, you have an idea, you have a thing, you have to do it as fast as possible because Mashiach is coming, ot, and you know what I mean? Then the whole thing changes. So Kol Zman, we're here in Golis.
It changes for you for sure. You're a Kayan. That means even if you wanted to sing, you won't have time. Mashiach is coming. This is something interesting to me. The world is changing in the last 2 years, like at a rapid pace. 50 years in the last 2 years of Rahman al tragedy, like we've never seen before, ups and downs. Does that affect the music? Would you say that affects the sound that's coming out and the messages that you're producing? The intensity of life.
It certainly did. I never would have touched a song like A Yid Never Breaks before 2020. I would have been morally opposed to it. It's such a sad song. It's it maybe Litvish. I don't know. It turns hopeful, but it's very dark. For most of the song, it's very dark. And I'm against it. No, we're young, and we're hopeful, and we're not depressed, and we conquer the whole world. And then we were pushed in a matzav of, it's a dark time.
The world went dark, the crowds dispersed on the streets that were once filled with light. But a brilliant light emerged from deep inside our hearts. The shuls were shuttered and still, but our prayers rang through our homes. Instead of looking out for inspiration, we dug deep and found strengths we'd never
So it's a dark time that we are trying our very best to see the positive side of it, which is what that song is about.
All the way down to, let's say, Nikolai, which is probably the most recent thing you've put out,
Right.
which again is a response in real time.
Right.
I hear. Interesting.
And also it's a Klal Yisrael tzara, you know?
Ukraine.
Yeah, Ukraine and COVID. These are two things that wasn't like somebody's experiencing a tragedy and I'm going to make a song about it, which I didn't like.
I got it.
But Klal Yisrael together, you're experiencing it. We're all experiencing this together.
Okay. But let's talk a little bit about Benny Friedman, if you don't mind. You know, we're
That's
jumping
my
in
favorite
over here.
topic.
Beautiful. Perfect. You very much, you have that your father-son thing to you also. This like self-awareness thing. You do
The
that.
sweater? The cardigan?
I didn't give you a dress code. You could do. You do you. Although I have to say that I'm pleasantly surprised. Could have been worse.
I try. I try to.
No, I mean that's nice. The healthy way you talk. That's very nice. Favorite topic is Yiskat. Tell me how we ended up over here. That means you're a kid not so long ago in Postville, Minnesota, with a good voice. Avraham Fried's nephew. And probably a little bit to the point that you wouldn't have minded your own identity. I'm assuming that you wouldn't have minded having another last name or being a regular guy and not always being. Is that correct? Like shoved into that.
When I was a kid in Postville, and there's video documentation to prove this, I didn't have a good voice.
Really?
I just loved to sing.
You didn't have a good
And
voice?
I wouldn't stop singing. Looking at the footage, I didn't have a good voice. I didn't have a good voice. But I love music. I love singing. And so I just did it all the time. And there were people there, for example, Shalmar Bashkin, who noticed it and encouraged me to his...
Right, just to be clear to the viewers, you grew up in Minneapolis. You went
Yeah.
to learn in yeshiva in
Yeah.
Postville from the Sifta.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I was in Postville for 3 years. And I would sing at the Shabbos table at the Rabashkin house. I sang at the Malav Malkus that he had every Motzei Shabbos. I sang at the Lag Boemer events that he was always pushing me to sing. And looking at the footage going, "Oy, Gewalt, how did he put up with it?" It was like...
Yeah.
We just sang together now. We just did a beautiful Shabbaton. We sang a whole Motzei Shabbos. It's beautiful. Anyway, so no, I don't think I never was bothered by the fact that I have this name associated. You know, the name association. Adrab of Adrab. You know, could be worse.
You didn't bother you, okay.
It didn't bother me at all. And people say, you know, you sound like your uncle. I go, are you serious? I sound like my uncle? Shh, that's the highest compliment. Yeah. And it's the highest compliment, it's not even for me. If you told anybody in Jewish music, you know, you sound like Avraham Fried. They go, no kidding. How about that? It's a fantastic compliment.
Okay. You're getting older, you love to sing. People are telling you have little promise. And then what, you went out with your wife and said, I want to be a singer?
I decided I was going to try being a singer before I met my wife. I actually warned her about it the first time I met her.
Now, could I ask you a question? I'm just curious. In this very chair where you're sitting not so long ago, your uncle sat, and he said, I would never let my kids be singers. 900 singers on the scene who had the same DNA as you, all started because they're from Fried something, but none of your own kids are there.
Yes,
so that means
correct.
everybody who's
Baruch Hashem.
Avraham Fried's second cousin
Baruch
is
Hashem.
putting out an album.
They're doing good things, Baruch Hashem. I'm proud of them. And Chazdei Hashem. But again,
by
it's really, I
design?
think, yes.
Some of them sing better, some of them don't, but it wouldn't interest me. You had no problem with that decision. Did you ask him?
I asked him, and he told me the same thing.
Okay.
He told me, if you ask me my advice, I recommend against it. But are you asking me my advice? And I said no. Like,
Whose advice did you ask?
I
Your
didn't
father,
ask.
your mashpia,
I spoke to my father about it, I spoke to my mashpia about it, and I spoke to my uncle about it. But I wasn't asking for permission, because in my mind, it wasn't a choice. It wasn't like, Hineni Muchan Umezuman to become a singer.
Should I be an actuary, a singer,
Right.
or I got it.
It wasn't like that. It was, this is what I'm doing since I'm, and it's and if I can sing public, if I can make a living off of it, you know what I mean? Like, this was the direction I was going. So I was asking for help. I was asking for advice. I was asking for, but I wasn't asking if.
Okay.
What I wanted for my children, I think also, it's not for you if it's a choice.
Okay.
Because it's not the easiest way to live.
Right. I would love to talk about that too. So you're going out with your wife and you say, I decided that I'd like to be a singer professionally. And she said?
I said to her basically, I said, I believe that I'm looking into a future that is difficult. Why? Because, manafshach, I'm going to try this. If I'm not successful, I'm going to be very, very heartbroken and very down and
hard to live with.
Hard to live with. And if I am successful, I'm going to be very, very hard to live with.
Harder to live with.
So, you know what I mean? And my wife said, "You're great at marketing. You should look into that."
It's funny. And she went with it. And
she went with it, thank God.
And you went to producers. You put out you weren't doing events then, really. You weren't.
I was already working on my first record. Izzy Taubenfeld, if you remember Izzy Taubenfeld from Sameach Music, came across a recording somebody sent him of a dinner that I sang at, and he contacted Avremel Garari. It was a
Would it make you feel bad to say? I remember when your first album came out that you were really just riding on the fact that you were Avraham Fried's nephew?
No.
That's okay.
Yeah. I was thinking to myself, if I can convince people that I sound like Avraham Fried, boom, I'm in the door, because we all know already that people like the way Avraham Fried sings.
So you'll just be...
That was a conscious...
Avraham Fried from AliExpress.
Right. So, but what I did do was I stopped listening to Avraham Fried music.
Wow.
In order to, I was listening to a lot of other music to try to adopt other knetches and tenuas and shtickes, you know what I mean? Because when I sang, I would sing exactly like Avraham Fried. It was like a caricature. So I was trying to get away from that.
To become yourself.
Yeah. But I gave that up pretty quick.
Went back to
listening to Avraham Fried, back where I belong.
Wow. Okay, so you become a singer and your first album was successful?
Was it successful? I think it was. It wasn't. It was before Yesh Tikva, right? So it wasn't sensational runaway hit. But for a debut album, I mean, compared to some debut albums that came out when I came out together, it was very well received. It didn't hurt, but it wasn't life altering.
And then came Yesh Tikva, and that sort of.
Yeah.
It was the song. You'd say that every singer would need that kind of song to make a career go to the next level, even if they have a great voice and great everything else.
Even if you don't have a great voice.
Really? But the right song.
It's all about material.
Wow.
It's all about material. And a song like Yesh Tikva is a matana from Hashem that doesn't come around very often.
Can I ask you a question? Do you ever feel like, I'm not saying that this is the case, but I even know there's some things in my own career that when you have a big success when you're younger, some people are always like, that's nice, but it's not that. So you're just living with your own demons that you created for yourself?
You mean as far as...
okay, it's a good song, whatever song you're making, but it's not Yesh Tikva.
Right.
You're stuck with your own...
Like my greatest success is behind me.
Right.
Right. It's awful.
No, I'm not saying it's the case.
No, it's an awful thought. What do you call it? It haunts you. It haunts you, but the vart is it's a very hard avodah. But I heard Shmuley Marcus after he had the success of Yalili, one of his songs in the next record, it said, "Don't let the hits hit you over the head." One of the lines of his songs. Don't let the hits hit you over the head. I don't know what he meant.
Wow, I never got that.
But to me, it meant you had a tremendous hit. Okay, doesn't mean you can't do anything else ever.
Wow.
You could.
Don't let it impede you. Don't let your successes impede you.
Don't let your hits make you a handicap. So the next song I had was Toda. Toda is a great song. When I did it, I knew, I said, it's not Yesh Tikva, but it's a good song. So don't let the hits hit you over the head. It's a good song, record it.
Beautiful.
It was like, yeah, for sure, it was a conscious thing.
And you were always only singing full time? You never did anything else at parnassah?
Yeah.
Because that's a very courageous and maybe others would say foolhardy decision to make.
Yeah.
Most singers don't start out doing it full time. They do other things and they hope.
Right.
There aren't that many. It's a very small group of people who are doing it full time.
I
Do you
don't
have the confidence and the...
I'm not sure if it was confidence or if it was maybe just plain stupidity. I don't know. But I never, even when I was struggling and, it wasn't like, man, I should, I should
What's
get a
the
resume.
parnassah? Albums every couple of years. So what? The weddings?
Album is not parnassah. Album is investment.
Really? So the
Album is
parnassah
investment.
is events?
Parnassah is events, yeah.
But how many events could there be already? It's not a lot of concerts going on.
No.
You don't market yourself as a big wedding singer. I guess you do that, but that's
The
not...
bread and butter is weddings.
Really?
Yeah.
And so you...
For sure in the beginning, for sure, even today. Most of a singer, as far as I know, unless you're like a niche thing, most of the income for singers, Hassidic singers for sure, I think, is weddings.
So you do a lot of weddings still?
Yeah.
Do you enjoy doing weddings?
Most of the time.
Yeah.
I enjoy singing, right? I enjoy singing. And when all the pieces are in place, that means the sound is good, right? I can hear myself, and it's the settings are correct. The oilam is into it. The band knows what they're doing, and I'm feeling good. Begashmias. It's the greatest pleasure.
You love it.
When
Yeah.
things are not going great, then it's like
It's work.
schlepping. It's work.
Like work for the rest of the world.
Right.
What the rest of us do every
Which is
day.
not what I signed up for.
Everett, let's talk about this week. You were telling me a little bit off camera about your schedule this week. Tell me.
My schedule this week
When we
was
originally scheduled this
Yeah.
interview, you said you're going to be jet lagged because you came back from Israel
right.
overnight.
Right. I was supposed to land this morning back from Eretz Yisrael. I was supposed to be from Motzei Shabbos till this morning in Eretz Yisrael for a big concert that was going to take place on Tuesday in Yerushalayim. And instead, I was home this week
Because
Chaim Kanievsky passed away Erev Shabbos, so we canceled the show.
who made the decision to cancel when?
I have a team in Israel who have been working on this concert for months and months with blood, sweat, and tears, mostly sweat, and they made the decision.
And of course, you understood right away that was the right decision.
I said right away, I was sleeping. It was after Purim. I woke up in the morning, and I have a frantic phone call from my Eretz Yisrael Chaverim, and they said, soon as it's going to be Shabbos over here, we're not going to be able to communicate, but just want you to know this terrible news. I hate to wake you up in the morning with this news, but looks like I said, okay, listen, it's Erev Shabbos, whatever it is, don't make any decisions without consulting a rabbi. Call a Rav, and whatever the Rav tells you to do, that's what we do. So I don't know who they spoke to, but I said, Motzei Shabbos, my flight, send me a notification, I'll see it Motzei Shabbos. If it's thumbs up, I'll get on a plane. If it's thumbs down, I'll not get on a plane. And the notification Motzei Shabbos was
thumbs down. So what that
thumbs down.
means, just to talk this out, is that you had no jobs this week because
Right.
you had planned to be in Eretz Yisrael.
right.
So what did you do? You schmooze with your kids? You did some homework?
I got to know my kids, yeah, I got
helped
to
a
know my
little bit.
kids again.
So people don't understand that part of your industry, which is that I assume that it's minute to minute, so to speak. That means there's
Right.
things like that happen.
Yeah, things like that do happen. It's not often, right? It's generally you have a schedule, you have a
I remember
calendar,
a
and you
conversation
can.
we had at the beginning of COVID, and you told me that
Right.
that was like a shock. You
Right.
live one way, and everything shuts down,
Yeah.
and you count on these events. It's not a monthly salary that someone's paying you.
Yeah, that was a very scary moment. It was like total wipeout. Just select all on your calendar, delete, finished.
Right.
I did one job. I came home, like a week after Purim. I had a check. I said to my wife, "This is it. This is it. This check that I hold in my hand is the last check that I know that we have. After this,
So what happened?
I have no idea. What happened was that we got tight for a long time. I went on unemployment.
You got also very skinny. You gotten skinnier. Is that from that?
Well, when you get COVID, you lose weight, and then when you recover, and then you're just sitting at home, you gain weight, right? Everyone, the COVID gain. So I, like everybody, went. But the Hasidic music industry, thank you Hashem, is very resilient. And I spoke to actually my uncle about it. He said also his calendar wiped out. And I said to the Eibishter, everybody knows parnassah comes from you. And it's very easy to say that when your calendar is full and things are normal. Okay, things are not normal now. Calendar's empty. Doni, the Eibishter schickt parnassah. Let's see you, this will take talent. And the Eibishter figured it out. Yeah, and like the industry changed, probably for the better. All these singles, every organization was doing online. Yeah. So Baruch Hashem. And then mitzad live jobs. It's hard for people. I have brothers and sisters who live outside of the tri-state area, the Brooklyn area. They don't understand. They were in COVID. Montreal. It's hard to even imagine. But I would say from Shavuos until Tisha B'Av, or maybe not. Maybe from Tisha B'Av till Rosh Hashanah time was like the busiest I ever was. It was, you speak to people in the Welt, musicians, and this.
So let me ask you something else then. We talk about post-COVID. A number of years ago, we sat down for an interview in Mishpacha, and you said to me, I don't know if we wrote it or if it was off the record or on the record, but now it will be on the record. Statute of limitations runs out on things. You said something along the lines of, you had put out several albums already, 3 or 4 albums, and you were like, you feel like you hit a brick wall type of thing. You're like, I'm doing it. It's okay. It's nice. But I want to be doing something different. I want to be singing differently, a different style I think you said like from a different part of you, maybe in a different way. You were just putting out Kulan and I Like then. It was a new album, and you were very nervous and hopeful and prayerful that you had just started working with Doni Gross, Yedidenu, Daniel Avraham, and you were trying something new. And I'm not a music pundit or anything, just an observer. It looks like Baruch Hashem worked out for you. It looks like Baruch Hashem, your career's in a good place. What was that about? What did it was like? Well, you were here. Like what happened? Take us through that.
Very, very interesting. Yeah, I met Doni, and everything changed. Everything changed. Mamish everything. First of all, Tzvi Silberstein. I met him, and he schlepped me, kicking and screaming, to Doni Gross. Basically, he hired me, right, to sing with him a duet. And he said, but the condition is that you record where I tell you to record. And I said, okay, whatever. I'm against it. I record where I record. I'm very comfortable. But if, you're the boss. You tell me. Schlepp me to Doni.
Change Jewish
that was
music.
It. Change Jewish music. That was it.
No, I'm not being cute. It's not because you're sitting here. Baruch Hashem, you're very, people love you sing.
Doni changed Jewish music. Right? Let's talk about that for a minute.
Doni. I'm a Doni fan, yeah.
Yeah.
Very much.
Enough to be, let's talk.
Yeah, Doni's special.
I was just listening to a lecture on Hassidic history of Hasidism, just from a historical perspective. No shtick. History, what's ever documented. We can document historically, Doni Gross changed the face of Jewish music. Mm-hmm. Aish, Journeys now. Joey. His fingerprints are all over what is today Jewish
altogether,
music.
You see this tremendous thirst for a certain style. I don't have my phone on me. They make you take it off before we get mic'd up here. But somebody said a letter to Mishpacha today. I didn't see the context of it, but I would love to read it to you on air. Something along the lines it was about endnote about Jewish music, oldies, what was, what is, the new sound. And they wrote, there's a singer that never changed, and that's Benny Friedman. A random reader just came in on today's letters that Benny Friedman is just true to who he is, true to his roots, and the style, he never You never really bought into that we need to be like them to be relevant. You could be like us and be relevant.
Well, you could be like us and be relevant to us.
No, I'm saying Doni brought back a thirst. You see that other singers are trying to recreate that. Yeah. They're trying to go back. Jewish music is going backwards in that sense. That means it's sophisticated and the sound is better, but the style is going back to what we grew up with.
Baruch Levine, Off the Record.
Right, I'm saying that type of thing. Yaakov Shweki did those with the days. You hear it again and again. You watch Modern and Avremel get up and they're singing. Right. They were always consistent. But I don't want to talk about Doni. We love talking about that. I want to talk about you. What happened? You almost, I would say, hit rock bottom in the way I saw it in your face then. And Baruch Hashem, you picked yourself up and just flourished, Baruch Hashem. What was that? Tell me about the inner part of it.
There was a guy, there's a comedian who speaks about this 12 people who walked on the moon in history of the world. Neil Armstrong.
John Glenn.
Who? Okay. Maybe one other guy that people know about. I can't remember his name now. But what about the 10 other people that walked on the moon? This guy, his name is, I think, Schmidt. Okay. His last name Schmidt. He walked on the moon. Nobody knows who he is. Okay. So the guy must be thinking to himself, just as the comedian, what do I have to do to get famous? I walked on the moon. Nobody knows who I am. So at that point, when I was sitting with you, I was like, I understand. Yesh Tikva is an international sensation. Ivri Anoichi is through the stratosphere. What do I got to do to get famous? I'm not famous, but to headline a show, a big show. No, you need to be the top three or whatever. People negotiating my prices and give me a hard time about this and that. Like, oh my goodness, what I got to do how much? What I have to do to prove? It was like, I felt like you said. I felt like I was like my tires are in the snow, and I'm pushing full throttle, and it's just. I'm not going anywhere.
That's a good Minneapolis, Marshall. Yeah,
I get Montreal, you understand.
I get it. Yeah.
So that was the feeling that I was feeling then. Then I started working with Doni, and Doni says some principles. First of all is sipuk. You need to work on projects that you enjoy working on. No doing projects just because you think this is a good business move. Because if you're doing a business move, you'll hear it. You'll hear it. You're not into it, you don't love it, and then you don't enjoy your life. Why sit hours and hours schwitzing over a project that you don't actually care for? You're just doing it, sipuk. If you love it, let's do it. If you don't love it, don't talk to me about it. Which is a tremendous, life-changing principle if you live by it.
If you're able to.
If you're able to. And musically, it's much more sensitive. If you have a job, you have a job. People love their job, people don't love their job. It is what it is. Musically, you're trying to create something that comes from your soul, which is another Doni principle. Oh my goodness. Doni emphasized something that everybody, I think, understands, but he takes it to another dimension. Music needs to move you emotionally. Music needs to move you emotionally. What moves you emotionally? The vocal. The voice singing the song is where you will touch the person on an emotional level. So the first thing that you need to do is find the perfect spot where the singing will be emotionally evocative. Okay. If you don't find that, you have nothing. If you don't find that,
no matter how good the arrangements are and the voice,
you're throwing money down the drain.
If your neshama is not there.
With technology, we could edit every note and we get to break things down. I always tell singers, sometimes singers sing, I'm like, that's great. They're like, yeah, it's off tune. I said, pitch we can fix a little bit. I can't create heart. A singer is not singing with emotion. He's not singing with feeling. I can't create that. Maybe they'll come to that point, but at this point we can't do that.
So you have to find the right key. You have to find the right tempo. You have to find the right song, and it has to be the singer has to connect with the song. So those four ingredients has to be the singer, the song, the key, and the tempo. Everything else Pirusha. Yeah, everything else is details.
So you think everything fell into place for you once you bought into that?
I think so. Falling into place.
No, but
We're still working on it.
Does being a Lubavitcher chassid help your career or hurt your career?
Being a Lubavitcher chassid is the whole bracha. It only helps. It only helps. I remember my brother was living in Brooklyn. He just got married, and his first baby was born with Down syndrome. And in New York, you have all types of help, and you have all types of services and things like that. And he was offered a shlichus opportunity outside of New York, and he wasn't sure what to do. So he asked my father, "I have here a baby who needs a lot of services and this, therapies and things, and I can move on shlichus where it'll be a lot more difficult, a lot more expensive." And my father said, "I don't understand the question. Shlichus is the bracha. Not staying away from shlichus is not the bracha."
He went on shlichus?
And he went
To where?
to Cleveland, and his son is doing fantastic, Baruch Hashem. It's a Mesiras Nefesh. No, nobody said shlichus is a walk in the park. Shlichus is Mesiras Nefesh.
You're a Lubavitcher chassid, but I'm not saying others aren't, but you really, there's not even a genre that I can associate with you. Baruch Hashem are able to, you could sing Israeli like an Israeli, you sing Chassidish. I think you've done events for Chassidim where you don't even sing English songs, real Chassidish events. In Lakewood, you're a household name, Baruch Hashem. I don't know that anybody gets around like you do. And Baruch Hashem, like the Esther Malka of Hassidic music, Baruch Hashem, everybody's good with you.
Baruch Hashem, thank you Hashem, I don't know.
What genre do you see as your own?
Modern Hasidic music, I don't know, whatever that means.
Would you want to do a Lubavitcher album like Avraham?
I would love to do it. It would probably be a little bit different. Avremel, first of all, I'm always uncomfortable calling him Avremel because my grandmother was always, don't call your uncle by his first name, you say Fetter Avremel.
Okay.
So with that disclaimer, I'll say Fetter now, and it goes for all the Avremels that I'll say. He was part of the Vad of the Baal Menagnim in his affinity, his feelings for Chabad Nigunim is very, very different from mine. Mine is as a little kid observing it. He was in the Smetana, in the...
Sure.
Right now, like online
back end.
Recordings are surfacing of him singing, like the first renditions of the Nigunim that they made for the Rebbe's birthday, or whatever it is. So he's a much more of a purist than I am. So if I would do... if I would do Chabad collection, Bezrat Hashem, it will be different. What will it be? I don't know, but it will be probably different.
And one final question. Do you feel
I thought we're just getting warmed up.
This is part one.
Oh, okay.
Which I'm going to do it again. You'll come on time because do you feel like you started your career, it was like, okay, he's just riding on the family name, he's riding on his good DNA to make himself relevant. We don't know that if your last name would be something else, Lav Dafka, you'd be where you are today. Do you feel like you've answered that question, like you've heard the rest? The fact that, unless you were born at the top of the mountain, so you benefited from Easy Pass. Do you feel like you've taken care of that?
I don't know, because I don't have a problem with it. I don't mind it. If my name was Soloveitchik, and I became a big Rosh Yeshiva, I'm fine with that. If you compare me to my uncle, the Rav, that's fine. I don't mind it. I don't mind
Just give me the microphone and let me sing.
Yeah, yeah. And if I can sustain it for an extended period of time, thank you Hashem.
Looking forward to what comes next. I have no doubt, Bertram, that your greatest successes are ahead of you. Gesundheit, veiligheid. Thank you for coming in.
Chaim l'chaim.
Chaim, Benny, thanks.